This conference will now be recorded.
Okay. The guest presentation from the cemetery commissioners and update from Jim Brochu on the community center. One-day liquor license, appointments to the mosquito control board, open space committee, and a motion to authorize the town manager to execute extension agreement with E.L. Harvey and Sons. Motion to approve intermunicipal agreement with the town of Northridge for public health shared services. Motion to approve year-end transfers, to approve the Tri-Valley Front Runners Road Race. Motion to execute Glen Ave, Hartford Avenue sewer easement. Motion to accept the deed and related easements for Azalea Lane. Motion to accept deed for William Street. Forest Heights update. Motion to open the warrant August 1st and close September 10th. And to discuss the summer schedule and town manager report Mondays. So we'll start the meeting with the Trust Fund Commissioner's update on the Maplewood Cemetery.
Trust Fund Commissioners updates?
Yep.
Cemetery Commissioners. There is a trust fund which.
Yes.
We have a trust fund commissioner here, if he wants to give us an update. Actually, we'll wait for a trust fund commissioner's update.
And you will get one. Well, the Cemetery Commissioners came before Selectmen last November's meeting, if I recall. After years-long searching for additional land or space in town to create a new cemetery, as the lot space in Lakeview is decreasing to probably less than 20 years of life. It's probably even less than that because it will be very difficult to sell the last, 15, 20, 30 lots as they're here, there, and everywhere spaced out. We did an exhaustive search. People that came before me, Glenn and others, and had reduced the list to a 10-ish acre lot on Westboro Road that's town-owned property that was taken, I believe, by foreclosure years ago. I want to start by saying we still wish that that land be assigned to the cemetery to use for long-term planning of cemetery space in town. So we are still interested in that 10-ish acre piece of land so we can look at developing it for long-term down the road. We were asked by one of you at that meeting what the status of Maplewood Cemetery was. We had been approached by the trustees of Maplewood a few weeks prior to that with an initial request. Russ Wood is here, that the town looked to take over that, acquire that cemetery. So we did more work. We had meetings with the Maplewood trustees, and we've done a lot of work since that time, which has resulted in a couple of things. One is we received a formal letter of request from the Maplewood trustees. I have that letter here, which was sent to all of you on email. It's the original letter signed by the 4 Maplewood Cemetery trustees asking us to acquire by gift that piece of property. We persuaded the Maplewood trustees to engage with a land planning service to have the property completely surveyed, which was completed about 1 or 2 weeks ago. This is a drawing from Gary Aaron Hellman Land Planning of Milford, which shows the entire property, which is made up of 3 contiguous parcels. And we're welcome to drag that down there if you would. The center of that layout is the active cemetery of Maplewood, where your hand is here. Exactly. That was a 10.4 acre parcel, which was laid out sometime between 1863 and the early 1890s as a cemetery. And has had 925 approximate burials in the 140 years, 150 years since. The parcel on the north is 6 acres, and the parcel on the south, which is the open field at the corner of Pleasant and Maple Avenue, is 4 acres. So they add an additional 10 acres to the central 10 acres, making it a 20.2 acre parcel. The southern piece and the northern piece were deeded by Harold Milton in 1935 to the Maplewood Cemetery Association. Neither one of those properties has ever had anything done to them to develop them into use for anything. The northern property, you'll see a line, a couple wavy lines, parallel lines that go through it. That is the sewer line from Pleasant Ave that passes across the back property of Blackstone Valley Tech through to the wastewater treatment plant across the street. There is an easement in the central cemetery that emanates from BDT's property, which is basically wetlands, swamplands. It passes water through to the two ponds in the cemetery. And there is a legal document on a deed that gives Maplewood Cemetery rights to access the land on BDT if we ever have to do anything to find out why the water is not flowing. But the two ponds appear to be groundwater and the water level never seems to drop, so it doesn't seem to be or has ever been an issue. We've done extensive work in laying out all of the existing sections of the central cemetery to determine how many graves and lots could be created. We have additionally laid out areas that were never laid out by Maplewood Cemetery in that central cemetery. Done an initial layout on the southern property and an initial layout on the northern property, both that will certainly change over time, to give us an idea of how many potential lots / graves could be made available and project how long that piece of property would last us. Somewhere here I have those numbers. We start with historical projections of Lakeview's data and historical projections of Maplewood's data. You will see from this graph, I have charted the number of burials per year based on the average from 2010 to 2011 to 2020, 10-year period. The number of burials for each cemetery and the totals of both. And there is a graph for you folks to take a look at. I have charts for both Maplewood and Lakeview that number, those numbers came from, which chart 150 years of history of both cemeteries in terms of using decennial numbers in order to tie it to the decennial censuses, 1850, 60, 70, 80, 90, etc. And you'll see from these charts that while the population of Upton was relatively constant from 1850 to 1950, 60, the census of Upton, as we're all aware, has increased fourfold, threefold at least since the 1950s, while the lot sales and burials in both cemeteries has remained relatively constant, if not slightly declined. And the percentage of cremations from about 1980, 1990 has increased to the point now it's between a third and a half of all burials. It's showing about 33% at Lakeview, and it's showing about 50% at Maplewood over the last 10-year period. So those numbers are rolled up. Yes, you can. That is, I think that's Maplewood. I did not bring the Lakeview chart with me. Those are rolled up into the other graph that I gave you simply to show you what the last 10 years shows in both cemeteries and totaling together, so that if Maplewood becomes town cemetery property, you'll see that what the averages are. I use those averages then to take an estimated 916 available graves in Maplewood in the existing central cemetery. 916 graves is based on half of that 450, whatever it is, lots, 2 grave lots, which is the way they're sold. But in order to tie it to the historic numbers, I turned it into graves, which is the way burials happen, obviously. That projects at a mid-30s number of 2 grave lots per year at 12 to 13 year life in the central cemetery. If we add to that the projections of what could be created in that southern piece of property, the open field on the corner of Pleasant and Maplewood after it would be developed, projects it about 1,400 graves and 37 years of burials would be made available there. In the northern piece of property, which is what I call the pine forest, because it's heavily treed, heavily pine, in approximately 1,100 burials for 15 years. Now that number is probably the least accurate because it all depends on how much tree removal and ground leveling could be done to create burial space. Those numbers are projected on doing very little groundwork after the trees. So using the terrain the way that it exists today, meaning some areas would not be usable because they're too steep or there's a couple hollows in there that probably would not be usable. However, there's an adjunct to that down the road with DVT. But anyway, all that projects to, like I said, 15 to 20 years at Lakeview, 12 to 13 years in the existing cemetery, 37 years in the lower field, and 15 or more, probably more than that, in the northern property. Gives 46 years, so if we round it off and say approximately 50 years or more is available in the Maplewood property. If we were to add in some of the planning we're doing, columbaria upright granite
above ground
boxes that are used to place urns. See them in a few cemeteries. Not a lot of cemeteries have them yet, but I think they're becoming more popular. You can put a 10 or 12 foot long unit, 5 feet high, and you can get 24, 30 burials in it, which based on the ground that it sits on, you get 1 or 2 burials. So it's a potential way to go to preserve land space and increase cemetery life.
technically it's not burials, it's cremations.
It's cremations. By the addition of those in both Lakeview and Maplewood, the year's projection would certainly increase greatly because we are seeing more and more cremations. And I think there's definitely cases where people are having their loved ones cremated and they're not bringing them to a cemetery at all. Well, we're seeing an increasing percentage in both cemeteries of cremation burials. And in some cases, where people already own lots were able to put the cremations either in the ground or over a full burial that may have happened prior, so they had to preserve land space and reduce the number of lots of those. So we think the last 10 years is providing us a pretty fair projection of what's going to happen over the next 20, 30, 40 years. I think it's leveled out. There's a percentage of people that are having their loved ones cremated for both cost and other reasons, and there are still people who continue to have full burials and buy a lot in our cemeteries. With that being said, we have done a fair amount of work with the Maplewood trustees in assessing the condition of the cemetery and have done a fair amount of maintenance and repair work over the last 4 or 5 months, with some still to go. I personally have worked to restore their 17-mile-long fence.
How many pickets?
It's looking great.
4,670 something pickets.
I know every one of them.
I need one sunny day to finish painting the fence after 3 months. You think I could find one sunny day to finish it and move on?
And we'll bring it in the fly, replace the missing slats.
DVT has manufactured 160 new pickets. Those should be ready in about a week to be put back on the fence and complete the restoration work. We have had a mason in and done repairs to the gazebo that's been there for 90 years. We are going to begin looking for painters to paint the little service building / chapel that's at the front entrance of the property, both inside and out. I believe the CPC has already approved funding for inside painting. The association will have to pay for painting the outside. We have sought quotes for restoration of the 600-foot-long stone wall that was built sometime prior to 1900. And I will be meeting with the CPC in early August to discuss whether they would be interested in funding the restoration of that wall, which the two primary quotes are in the mid-30s to restore it. I have provided all that information to Dennis and John at the DPW, and they are going to potentially seek additional quotes from masons that the town has used in the past to see if that number and the extent of restoration can be brought down and the extent increased. Dennis, I thought, was going to join us tonight.
He's
He's on the thing, and he was working on with John the amount of maintenance and what that would do to his workload if this town takes over that cemetery in terms of regular maintenance, mowing, leaf removal, etc., and what might want to be done in terms of the roadways. Hi, Dennis.
Good evening.
This is the point where you can add any thoughts you have on what you've looked at in the last week on Maplewood in terms of maintenance if we acquire the cemetery, and in terms of maybe road condition, what might be done there long term.
Sure. So we took a long, hard look at it over the last week and a half, and it's pretty easy for us to predict labor force and equipment that's going to be needed because, as you know, the DPW already maintains several town-owned cemeteries. So we used Lakeview Cemetery as a baseline to compare it to Maplewood. There's a lot of similarities, but there are some differences. Lakeview is 12 acres, and the portion of Maplewood that we would maintain that's active is 10 acres, plus an additional 4 that is currently mowed, but there are no graves located in it. So we're comparing 12 acres to roughly 14 acres. There are some significant differences between the cemeteries that we have to take into consideration. If you bear with me for a minute, I'll pull my notes up. Maplewood Cemetery has several areas that are hilly. Now, I know everyone's familiar with Lakeview Cemetery. Lakeview Cemetery has what we call rolling hills. Everything that we can mow with a conventional stand-up mower that we use for our cemeteries. There are a few areas in Maplewood that we would not be able to mow. They would have to be done by hand. They're just too steep. Maplewood also contains a great number of mature trees, most of which are deciduous, so spring and fall cleanup is going to be considerable compared to Lakeview due to the number of leaves that are going to come down. We took that into consideration, and we came up with a game plan to try to use the land topography to our advantage, and considered blowing everything to the roadways where we could pick it up with our leaf vac. And that saved us a little bit of time in our calculations. And Maplewood does not contain a garage or storage shed. So when we consider daily and weekly maintenance of Maplewood, we would be mobilizing and demobilizing daily. So we would have to, it's not extensive, but we would have to load equipment up on a trailer and haul it there, perform our work, and before the end of the day, load everything back up on the trailer and bring it back to the DPW. So currently, when we look at Lakeview, it takes 28 to 32 hours to mow that. And the reason that there's a scale there is because of the growing season versus the middle of summer when there's a drought. So 32 hours being the most it takes and 28 being the least it takes. It takes an additional 24 hours to weed whack the entire cemetery. So if we use that as a baseline, we can apply that to Maplewood. In addition to the labor force, we would also need an additional stand-up mower, 48-inch mower I would recommend, 2 gas weed trimmers, a walk-behind self-propelled leaf blower, and a dump truck would be advantageous. The roadway is typical of cemetery roadways. Of course, it would be much better if the mains were paved, and down the road, I'm sure we could work with the Cemetery Commission and accomplish that over time. I wouldn't recommend paving the sides or the secondaries as we do in Lakeview now. It works out better that way to leave them grass or grass and gravel mix. And I didn't consider any major capital. As you heard from the Cemetery Commission, they're on top of the ball for looking at the fence, God bless you, Ed, and stone wall and other particulars of the complex. But that's what I have for information.
One of the things that Dennis and I had a brief conversation on last week was he took a look at one of the layouts I did, the layout I did for the open fields, where I basically drew a circular roadway with burials below, above, and in the middle, with potentially an entrance off of Pleasant Street that could be considered down the road. Dennis's first comment was, you got the graves too close together, we wouldn't be able to get the backhoe and dig them all. And I said that I laid them out with the intent that all the gravestones be perpendicular to the streets. So you'd be able to drive off a roadway with a backhoe down between, I don't care if there's 10 gravestones in a row, and get to any grave and dig it. He said I have to turn the machine, and there's not enough room. A lot of cemeteries use a mini excavator to do that, which you'd be able to drive down between rows of gravestones, turn the machine without turning the wheelbase and digging your grave. I said it becomes the cost of a mini excavator versus the loss of lots in a cemetery, value of land and everything else. It would seem to me we should be both here recommending the procurement of a mini excavator sometime in the next few years for both cemeteries to increase the number of lots, increase the life of the cemetery, and reduce the urgent need for additional land to keep cemetery space.
We actually have the same problem at Lakeview, only aggravated by closer proximity of the rows and the stones. We've been very fortunate so far. We've been able to get to most of them without any major problems, but as we continue to use the resources we have, it's worse and worse every week.
And the section in the back of Lakeview, which if all of you are familiar with, where most of the burials are occurring right now, most of the lot sales, was laid out without access paths through it. That will become more and more of an issue as it gets more densely packed with gravestones.
To correct you, it was laid out with paths, and somebody went ahead and erased the paths and used them anyway.
Okay.
Before we got there.
Same difference. So I think, Dennis, you would set many excavators in the neighborhood of $80,000, and I think with the cost of land and expansion space and everything else, it ought to be considered in the next few years to be an area that we need to discuss. So I guess you guys have any questions for us?
Steve? Yes, got a couple questions. So again, it's talking about the time and the hours that it would take to maintain the cemetery. You gave a pretty good depiction of time, but what is that going to actually boil down to in dollars and cents? I mean, are you looking at that as that's summer maintenance? Obviously, you have fall as well, so some mowing time would be part-time summer help. And then, of course, we need extra hours to care of it in the fall.
So in Lakeview Cemetery, we have one full-timer who's busy sometime in March when the snow melts enough so that he can start cleanup as early as possible and prepping graves that we did during the winter time so the grass will grow in time for Memorial Day, right up through Thanksgiving. So that only leaves December, January, and February of really downtime in the cemetery. And during that time, generally that full-time person is augmenting our regular staff, doing tree work. If there's any burials, internments during the winter, which there always is, assisting with that and assisting with the tree crews on the sides of the roads and winter operations. So in my calculations, based on the number of hours, that's why I broke it down to hours. And of course, we're getting into the weeds, so we can always fine tune some of the hours. But if you're looking at 28 to 32 hours of mowing per week and 24 hours of weed whacking, that's over 50 hours of, you'd be looking at a full-time employee and to some extent a seasonal employee. And when I say some extent, there would be room to talk about the best time to have the seasonal employee working, like we do with the cemetery now. We tend to bring them in right around Memorial Day or just after, and we keep them as long as we can, but usually they have to go back to school the end of August, and that's as late as we can keep them. I did not do, I'm sorry, Steve, I know you asked dollars and cents. I did not do dollars and cents. I simply put together the amount of labor and equipment would be necessary to take over and provide the same level of services that we provide now.
And the excavator that you're speaking of will be when the cemetery expands to 4 acres in the front, is when you're talking about needing the mini excavator to get in there.
No, several of the areas that had not been used at this point in Maplewood Central Cemetery that we would, over the next few years, open up for lot sales would require that, or they would have to be limited in terms of number of lots, with space needed. So Lakeview's facing that situation now.
We're in that situation now.
He has difficulty getting the backhoe into some areas, especially as gravestones being added in that back area at the beginning was difficult in some of that area too, without knocking off stones, moving the stones with the backhoe. So, not necessarily next year, but certainly in the very foreseeable future, it would be a definite bonus.
Matter of time and luck.
And it's a trade-off, as I said, of the cost of the machine versus the cost of land space.
In terms of land acquisition, if we were to purchase Maplewood as a town, it sounds like we'd be somewhere in the order of 50 plus years of capacity. I would assume at that point you wouldn't need Westboro Road land. I can't imagine that you'd need both of them, or I don't understand how much capacity is good to have.
50 years, what do you do?
Well, 50 years isn't a long time. Projection of the lifespan.
I'm just trying to understand the urgency, right? So
urgency, no.
Okay.
The issue of spending the last, 8 or 10 years looking for a piece of land and coming up with nothing versus trying to do that 30 years from now and coming up with $5 million for, somebody's back 10 acres that you'd have to create a road to get to. I mean, I think a lot of the land that wasn't looked at is all landlocked. And what effort does it take to create a right of way through some people's property to get to a lot of pieces of land here in the town of Upton that are 80 acres, 100 acres, 50 acres that are all behind houses and whatnot.
You know other piece of land in town that's suitable if doesn't already have a building or a major facility on it.
that answers my question.
And that's the last option we'll ever have until you want to buy something to tear it down and make room.
If you wanted to build a fire department or something on that 10 acres on Westboro Road, I would feel some sympathy, but to use it for anything other than sell to someone to build a house on or something would be the same issue we face trying to find a piece of land 25 or 30 years from now to keep enough cemetery space ahead of us to take care of the town's needs. The interesting thing on the graph that I did was, again, you've got the town population that's gone from 2,000 to 2,500 up to 8,500, approaching 9,000, while burial numbers have stayed relatively constant. I have to believe at some point in the next 10 to 20 years that number of burials is going to start to rise congruent with the population growth. And that then these projections of 50 years, not 50 years anymore. At 35 or 40 or something less.
Well, as you had stated, it was, 50% of the burial, cremation?
33% right now, cremation burials.
Cremation burials, and what would you surmise would, in the future, would be, the percentage at that time? 50 years from now, 30 years from now?
If I were to guess, I'd say it will rise to half.
Half?
That's an optimistic guess. Good as any.
I mean, if it rises to 60%, if it rises only to 40%, the numbers don't vary that significantly. I think it's also us looking at the amount of space required for burial. A, columbarium is one way to reduce the amount of space. B, might be to take a few of the areas we've never done and lay them out in much smaller lots for cremation burials in the ground, rather than giving somebody a 4-foot by 10-foot lot. And then they put an urn in it, and maybe that sells in 2-foot by 2-foot lots to put an urn in it, which would, double the amount of usable space. So we can look at some of those creative ideas, talk to some local cemeteries and see what they're doing in that same regard.
The offset is that you can't put up a monument, you know, put a stone in the ground and flat stone. A lot of people don't like the flat stones, unless they're free from the government.
Are there any questions from the audience?
Did want to mention one other thing if I can.
Okay.
Kind of just a board discussion. A lot of good information there, but that front piece of land, the 4 acres that's actually at the corner, you know, is there a municipal use in the short run where that's overflow space that really wouldn't be necessary for, it looks like the next probably 20 to 30 years before we'd actually need to develop that into cemetery space. You know, that may be a good piece of land. We could do some sort of a, you know, municipal, not a structure, but say, for instance, in conversations in the past, farmers markets, things of that nature. Could also be a piece of land that, again, we could use for some, you know, open municipal space.
In that regard, one of the things that I think would be advisable in our end to take the property over would be the next 5 years or so, with that clearing and leveling that piece of property for
Riding on a
expectation
shooting
of
star,
use down the road. Now, whether it's another municipal.
heading out toward a dream.
Would be fine, but to clear about.
Tomorrow's even closer
Those area of trees.
than it
level it.
seems.
That's all going. It's the piece that borders BDC's part 100 request.
Moving through the cloudless sky,
And it's floating that for some.
heading out toward the moon.
Cars.
I am dancing too.
I was thinking that would be an area, the reason I was looking at that first, I'm thinking, well, that's back up to where the fireworks are being set off. Later in the agenda, we have questions about liquor licenses, one day liquor events, that could be a separate area there. You know, that may be able to support fireworks. Yeah.
This is all good discussions, and I think that as a board, we need to take a real hard look on it and see with Dennis and whoever else is involved in any of the expenses that are incurred. And then come back and make a decision.
I think the one last piece that I almost touched on earlier in the conversation is the upper piece of property, which is basically a pine forest right now. BBT has expressed interest for years in that piece of property. We had a conversation with them 2 or 3 months ago about the possibility of leasing it to them for use for 2 of their recreation fields that sit behind the school right now. It's a soccer field and a baseball field, where they have proposed relaying them out to give them more space and to potentially put a parking lot off of Maple Ave in the lower part of that field, which would give us, 1, they would have to pay to clear the lot. 2, they would have to pay to level the lot. 3, they would have to pay to plant grass, all the things you need for recreation fields. So it would potentially relieve us of 90% of the cost of developing that into a cemetery and provide our local school with something that would benefit them for maybe the next 30 years. We gave a 25, 30-year lease with renewable increments of some fashion, 5-year increments or something. We could say at some point, okay, now we need it for a cemetery, and in 5 years you have to release it back to us. And in the meantime, don't put any permanent structures on it that cause any problems down the road. But if you want to use it for ball field, I think that would be a good win again for the town and for the school. So Dr. Fitzpatrick is very interested in continuing that discussion if that's feasible. But that would probably save us $150,000 to $200,000 in development costs of clearing it, at least dumping it, leveling it, planting grass.
He turns it back to us, it'll be ready for use for the cemetery.
We just have to fence up.
It's not there today.
So
Well, that's useful information that we can use and then come back, maybe next meeting, the meeting after. We'll find out what the true costs would be, Dennis, and maybe as part of the discussion with Dr. Fitzpatrick also.
I will add that, not to undercut Dennis, but I will add that Maplewood has had a gentleman maintaining that cemetery believe he's been there since about 1988, and he does all the mowing and all the weed whacking, push mowers and hand tools. Definitely not the way that we would want the DPW to maintain it, but in that one man is able to do that probably 25, 30 hours a week and maintain the entire property. Now, that being said, it could probably be mowed a little more often than he mows it to look a little bit better. But somewhere between the two is probably a realistic.
He doesn't spend any money on fertilizer, so it's not that.
Well, I thank you for the information, and we'll have a discussion on that and get back and probably meet again.
Yeah, if you have any information, just forward it to us via email before you reach any other agreements. We'd like to know.
Well, I don't think we go anywhere until we get the
Very good.
Yeah, we need direction from here because there is, and it was mentioned in the letter you received, there is a trust fund that is semi-tied to this package. I don't think it affects this. But it's a trust fund that has almost $1 million in it that nobody has really been able to look into for the past 50 years. And anything to done with it, to be negotiated to benefit the town. It's written such that when the heirs are gone, Maplewood Cemetery gets at least half of the income off the trust fund, and the town gets the other half. And I think if the Unitarian Society of Upton is gone, which we think it kind of is, Maplewood Cemetery gets the benefit of 75% of the income, in the town of Upton 25%, something like that. It appeared to us with the limited research we were able to do that the heir who is named in the trust fund may not be getting payments from the bank. And if the bank isn't listening, we have a suspicion, but we don't know for sure, that the bank is manipulating the trust fund to be able to take just about all the income from every year.
I'm very happy with that's the way it is.
Derek forwarded the trust fund to the town council, and we got some responses that said it probably can be renegotiated in some fashion, but we don't know where or how we should pursue that, or you should pursue that, I guess. I did do a, what it's worth, just because I am a professional genealogist, did a genealogy of the man who was receiving the money, or supposed to be receiving the money from the trust fund. And his 5 wives and 5 divorces and 4 kids. It's quite a fascinating story. So if anybody ever wants to see that, I'd be happy to email that. Yeah. It's almost better than fiction.
That kind of the sales pitch, I guess I'll take it out.
So if you would like the chart, anybody wants this chart, the numbers, so you can refer to it again, and actually give you the Maplewood one.
If I just could add, for legal matter, in order for the town to take care of custodians, we would have to go to town meeting. Yes.
You did resolve that.
Yeah.
Joy?
Yes.
And at the point in time, or at some point in time designated, if the town agrees to take over the property, Russ would be more than happy to write a check to the town of Boston for the benefit of the Cemetery Commission of all monies left in his checking and savings account, which is anticipated to be in the low 20s unless we choose to do some more maintenance before we take over. That's kind of where that stands now.
Yeah.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And he's written the history of the cemetery for future publication. Thank you, folks.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is the update on the community center from Mr. Brochu.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening. With me this evening on the screen is Mr. Kirby, Steve Kirby is the OPM, and Peter Turowski is the architect of record for this project. So, 2 months since the town meeting, voted positively for this community center again, which I want to thank everybody for that. What have we done? We have been very busy. We have continued with the development of the construction documents and specs. We have met quite a few times with the Conservation Commission with respect to development of the mitigation plan for the project. That has all been approved. The hearing for the Conservation Commission has been closed, and we are waiting. We've seen the draft order of conditions, but we are currently waiting for the final order of conditions. We have met quite a few times with the planning board, and the hearing is still open for that. We have received the comments from their independent reviewer, Stantec, on that, and we have responded to all of their concerns or their comments this past week. We have another meeting with them on the 27th of this month, and we hope and we anticipate that the hearing will be closed at that time. All the comments due to project schedule, it is imperative that we close that hearing at the end of this month, which I relayed that to the administrative assistant on the planning board. We have also worked with the DOT regarding the curb cuts, and we received comments from the Mass DOT regarding the curb cuts on June 25th. And right now, T2 is working on a response to the DOT. So that's really what we have been doing, for the last 2 months. So moving forward, we anticipate that Vertex will be posting in the Central Register on August 12th. The notice that we will be providing a bid package out there. We will start the bid process on August 18th. We will have potentially a bidder's site walkthrough briefing on the 25th of August. We file sub bids, which are all of the sub bidders for the project, and they're numerous that exceed a certain amount. You have to receive their bids first and file sub bids. So those we anticipate to be back on September 8th. We issue, once we review all the file sub bids, then we issue the amount and the recommended sub bidder to the GCs for them to include their numbers in the GC bid. The GC bid will be due back on September 22nd. It will take approximately a week to review the bids, and then it is our intent to come. Hopefully, the Board of Selectmen will be meeting on the 28th of September, on Tuesday the 28th. And it would be our recommendation to come to the board for your approval of a general contractor at that time for the project. We will award the contract to the low responsible bidder on the 1st of October. October will be made up of pre-construction meetings, and we will anticipate to close the playground on or about October 25th with the removal and the safe storage off-site of all of the current equipment there. Hopefully by November 1st, the general contractor will mobilize on-site and fence in our site, the town-owned property, to begin construction. We are hoping for a substantial completion on October 1st of 2022, which is 13 months from the awarding of the contract, and final completion on December 1st of 2022. So that currently is our proposed schedule. We moved this up a little bit more because the estimators that we're using and what we are hearing, that they are recommending that if we can push the bidding off to later in the summer, that hopefully material prices, material costs, building costs, lead times will subside a little bit. So material costs hopefully will come to more of a realistic number than what it is now. If we wait till later on in the summer for bidding. Somebody said one time, why don't we wait and bid next year? You know, and with that, it's kind of a double-edged sword. Prevailing wage rates usually are adjusted every year. So if we wait till next year, labor rates are going to go up. Maybe the prices of material will come down, but labor rates potentially going to go up. So we feel as if that this schedule right now is very advantageous. And again, we're hoping to get a lot of attention and a lot of good bidding for this project. We are all very excited about it. And like I said, the committee, the team has been working very hard on this. And it's going to come to reality very soon. So with that said, Steve, have I left out anything?
Jim, everything sounds good. That's, you know, the whole issue about material pricing, again, like Jim said, we are hoping that material costs level out. We're seeing lumber somewhat level out at this point. We're hoping it starts going back down to where it was before. And lead times on some materials also are problematic. We're seeing it on some of our other jobs. Some of the materials in particular, fortunately, we do not have on the community center. So, you know, it's sort of an uncertain market right now in construction, just because of the ripple effect of the pandemic, with manufacturer plants that closed down and are now trying to catch up, and the acquisition of raw materials to go to these manufacturing plants. So, you know, not going out to bid, you know, in the middle of the summer. You know, we're buying a little bit of time so that those costs and lead times somewhat level out. But like Jim said, we don't want to wait too long, because the prevailing wage always goes up. It never goes down. So we would see it on the labor end if we waited till the spring.
Thank you, Steve. Again, we have a great team, you know, on this. We have Matthew's been fantastic. Janice has been fantastic. We've received some labor donations. Bill Andrews has offered, and Bill Andrews, if anybody knows his work as far as casework and bookcase work, he has offered his services to donate for the casework at the main entrance. So that is going to be, you know, taken out of the project as far as bidding. And Bill has offered to do that. And you know, all you have to do is go to St. Gabriel's and look at some of the millwork that he's done on the altar there and other places. It's incredible. So again, the people that we've been working with, the people that have reached out, the team I have, this is still very exciting. I can't wait for about a year and a half from today when we're all there doing the ribbon cutting. So with that said, I will turn it over to the board.
Been very busy, haven't you?
We have a meeting tomorrow night. Now we have to, again, still just work on details. We want to make sure we don't miss anything.
Brett, any questions?
No questions. Just a comment about all the great work you and the whole team are doing. I know there's, you know, a couple of you here, but I know there's a lot more of you that are doing the work day to day, and it's just, you know, it's an incredible amount of work and an incredible donation to the town, and just a reflection of everybody's commitment and care for the community. So, you know, it's a great opportunity. The only thing I would ask is if there's anything in your way or anything that we can ever help with, as a board or as people, absolutely let us know, Jim. We are just in full support of helping.
Absolutely. And again, I can't say enough that this project, I want to thank the public and I want to thank everybody who voted positively for this and gave us truly the confidence to do this and confident in us that we were proceeding correctly. I can't thank the townspeople enough for this.
Yeah, great job, and thank you for your work. It's certainly an unenviable time to take on a project like this with the market as it is and construction problems and supply chain problems. So hopefully that will be alleviated come fall.
I'm dealing with these type of issues on projects at Valley Tech currently. And so I know exactly, what's in store. But again, we've got a great team and we're maneuvering, I think, correctly to try to still have deal with some of the, I call it the pandemic hangover.
Any questions or comments from anyone?
Good job, Jim. Good job.
Thank you.
Thank you for the update.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Jim.
Peter, Steve, thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let me help you with anything.
No, thanks, I got it.
Bye, Jim.
Bye, guys. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next on the agenda is the one-day liquor license.
It's very simple.
Brian Goodman, is he here at all?
There he is.
There he is.
They hide in the corner. I know. It's nice to actually be here in person for my first time. And granted, as much as I've enjoyed doing these meetings in my pajamas, it's there's something lost with not being face to face. So nice to see you guys.
Nice.
Thank you for having me. It's very exciting. So as I'm sure you all saw, I turned in 6, and we'll actually. I apologize. I did miss a makeup date for the beach concert series. I would also like to, again, assume, which will look very similar to 4 of the other applications that I applied for. I don't know if you guys are meeting before then, but it will be virtually identical for the same event. So I'm hoping that should the board choose to approve the liquor licenses, that we can, in theory, approve that one as well. But 2 different reoccurring seasonal events that we applied for.
Excuse me 1 second. Do you want to address the VFW first, theirs, and then go on to what we need? So
We should probably take them in order. So
Yeah, sure.
we see him is the VFW first.
Excellent. Cool. Great. So, so based on speaking with Chief Bradley, what he explained to me is, at least as far as he's concerned, the biggest concern is making sure we have a very designated beer drinking area. Well, I'll just refer to this as beer garden. I feel like that's a pretty understandable term. That we make sure to keep the beer there, and that, of course, everybody who would be serving, and which all of my staff is tip certified, and we would really keep a very familiar rules to the public events, 2 beer maximum, checking everybody's IDs every time, regardless of perceived age or anything like that, and really just controlling the area where the beer is consumed, and making sure to put a hard limit on the amount of beer per person consumed. So it's just a nice addition to Great Town events, as opposed to something that's going to change the atmosphere or the safety of said events.
Everyone is tip certified.
Of course.
Okay.
A requirement of working at restaurants, yeah.
And have you given us a copy of that?
I don't know that I have, but because, well, I don't know specifically. I don't have my staff scheduled for each there, but I'm happy to provide confirmation of tip certification for each date with the specific staff who will be working each date.
Any questions, Steve?
Yeah, if you could just kind of talk us through this a little bit. It's very general here. So you're talking about a fenced off area, which we're talking about the VFW right now, and I'm assuming we'll handle these one at a time. So on the VFW property, you intend to have an area fenced off?
yes, we do intend, well, again, where, especially to where it's, Rushford and Sons name on the, application, we absolutely want to make sure we have an area fenced off that we can control where we can, have that, well, not to sound redundant, but have that high level of control of the product being served, who it's being served to, and again, making sure that the safety and, the safety is maintained and the atmosphere of the event is not changed. And Sean, if you wanted to speak about a specific area of for the VFW that we would stake out, or at least general, so let's work kind of has an idea.
So I guess the high level concept here is to try to bring something new to an event that's been occurring for quite a long time and has a very designated following. The people that are coming to this event are generally over 40 and have collector's cars of some sort. We have had events that have been up to 100 cars, where we've been using our parking lot on our side, as well as the front lawn and even the back of the building. So these have been what's, of course, it varies with the weather. We've had a few rough weeks here lately. So we don't know what to expect. I think the numbers that are on the application kind of show that as well. We don't know. We could get 5 cars because it rains. Maybe we do a rain date the following week that we put out there. It could be that it's the first really warm Tuesday we've had in a while and we get 100 cars. So we kind of went big with the number on the application of what potentially we could expect. We are also, we're testing this out in this last week of July, and we wanted to test it out one more time this season in the end of August, with the rain dates being the following week, because that should occur. We will also be adding a food truck to each of these events. Something to, this time we're going to keep our grill open and try to find something that complements the burgers and hot dogs that are there. So as not to fully compete with that. So we're trying to, we'll be advertising that, I think, in conjunction with the brewery. We hope that not only the pre-event people will be coming, but also people will be dropping off to maybe pick up some food on the way home. And maybe we'll pull in some people that have never been to the event before who are stopping to get some food to go home, may have beer, may go look at some of the cars, may enjoy, usually we have a singing DJ. They enjoy that. So we're just trying something a little new, which I think the town is very interested in, and trying to get some new stuff going on. And so it looks like a great, just a great opportunity to kind of work with a new business in town, and maybe both of us get something out of it.
Okay.
And trying to be more specific to the question, most likely, I would foresee the front lawn being where we would have the setup for the brewery. So just as you pull into the lot with the, if you think of the loop that goes around the building in front of, so kind of in front of the carport from the front lawn is where I kind of foresee that. We have plenty of tables, plenty of chairs, and we'll just be looking to do some sort of mesh, I think, wall. That I think something similar to maybe what you've seen at a men's club, for fireworks, something of that nature, and of course, make a banner out there.
Brett, any questions?
It's awesome. I love seeing the activity. I love seeing Upton getting better and better, and the downtown being revitalized. It's absolutely phenomenal. I'm very happy to see the partnership between the VFW and you guys running. So that's great. The only question I have is, it looks like there's no police detail. Is that, you talked to Chief Bradley about that, and he said that was fine.
I asked him what he specifically would be looking for. He did not mention a police detail to me. He specifically mentioned the cordoned off area. So again, I don't want to speak for him, but he specifically.
Can I answer that to the chair?
Yes.
So Chief Bradley and I had a conversation. He is concerned about having a police detail, but he doesn't expect a large crowd, at least early on. So he doesn't want a police detail early on. He did say, however, that if this starts to draw a large crowd, upwards of 150, 200 people, he will then at that point require a police detail.
Great.
If that's the case, I have a feeling there'll be room in the budget to pay for it. We should be so fortunate.
Hope we get there.
That's good. Rising tide would raise all ships, so absolutely.
That's it for me.
Okay, Steve, you all set?
Yep, VFW, the dates, we see the rain date. Brett, do you want a motion?
Sure, I make a motion to approve the one-day liquor license for Rushford and Sons Brew House for July 27th with a rain date of 8/3.
Second motion?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous action.
I'll say thank you.
And there's a second one.
Keep going on here.
Yep.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you very much for sticking it out with me. I'll talk to you tomorrow.
And then there's another one for Rushford and Son. So looks like,
Rushford and Son is doing the Kiwanis.
yes, another date for the VFW.
Yes.
So the secondary date, so we'll motion now.
Rain date.
Well, no, there's actually another set of
The
dates.
8/31 that's further down.
Right,
Yeah.
so I'll make a motion to approve the one-day liquor license application for Rushford and Son for the VFW Cruise Night on August 31st with a rain date of, looks like that is September 7th.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous action. And then the one on Kiwanis Beach.
Yes, which I put together a slide just to kind of summarize what we have with this one. You know, what the vendor is, a fully licensed, they all service are tip certified. Those are the concert dates. We submitted, Rushford has submitted paperwork for everything but the 8/11, which was a 6:30. We moved that to 8/11, we got canceled. So we need to do that. A serving time is 6 to 8. And we do need a fenced off area. And I have a couple of pictures so that those of you who have been down there, this is the area where we're going to do it. It's adjacent to the beach, as you can see on the right. And it's going to go all the way down to where you see the barrel, the green barrel down on the left. And the second picture gives you a better indication. I've already tried to see, but those are the posts that they're going to be attached to. It's going to come from those posts out to the end of the lawn, all the way down and back over. You'll have one entrance. Our food will be served before that. You'll have one entrance in and out. We'll have signs made that say no alcohol beyond this point, so everybody understands that they have to stay in there.
Question, comments?
The only comment I would have is I don't see a police detail noted here as a yay or an A, but other than that, looks great. Again, just same level of excitement as with the downtown and VFW partnership. Love to see this. Really great.
Steve? Once again, I hate to be the party pooper. This is social guy is the next guy, but I have a problem with the location. I feel there's kids that play there. It's summertime. The kids that play ends, I think it's 5 o'clock or 5:30.
No, they have 5 o'clock, everybody's gone.
Yeah, I used to show up a little bit late when I was picking up my kids a few years back.
We stayed open for you, Steve.
I'm sure you did.
Let that be noted.
Yes, you did charge me accordingly though.
Yeah. Hey, Sockets, you know, you're all welcome.
There's no 5-minute buffer. If I go 5, I made for now.
And you got a deal on that too. So they'll be out of here by 5.
It is finished though.
Yeah.
Where it's town-owned property, that's kind of the part that, I struggle with. I look at it as, that's our recreation area. It's kind of a kids area. You got the beach there. We're going to set up, to me, just something there doesn't seem right. I understand, I think time of year for me is the problem. And I understand you can't have one without the other.
Right.
But I think if you didn't have your beachgoers and you didn't have your kids at play, I probably would feel a little bit differently. But I think based on the fact that, again, we got, a kids camp running there till 5 p.m.
Yeah.
And then we're trying to set up food, try to set up beer, and try to set up a band. I just think it's too much. I just don't like the idea.
Okay, well, kids at play shouldn't have any bearing on it whatsoever. There's a whole hour in between there, and most of the people go by actually 4:30. So that shouldn't have anything. I agree with the beach. That's why we're going up to the beach line, so people can still use the beach. We'll have picnic tables inside the beer area. And, I think it's a great combination of everything.
Any of my board members have had any issues with it being town property and serving beer on it?
I think we took a vote, about serving alcohol in town hall because it was town property.
I think we did. I do remember that.
But this, just to point out, is outside, not inside a building, and it's a recreation area. You can't consider this building to be a recreation area. This is a town municipal building. That's not. That's just holding. And it's make a recreation.
But the thing of it is, it's a whole complex, right? You know what I mean? It's the whole, whether, it's just, it's based on a whole complex. So I don't think that the issue that I struggle with is not where you're having it. Even if you said, well, we're going to have the, beer served at the tennis courts, to me, it's still town property.
Right.
A certain amount of liability that comes upon the town, and I'm just not sure I'm comfortable with.
Well, the liability is, they're a vendor that has all the insurance, and that's why in the past when we requested to do this, that was the one item that people said, we can't afford to do this as a town. We don't want the liability. Well, they're the liability because they're the vendor.
But there was a liability section of the bylaw when we talked about doing away with alcohol in town hall. There was a high $1-2 million policy that had to be
I
carried
believe it's a
because
$1 million blanket policy. And that was specifically for town hall, but I just want to remind folks that the board has historically awarded a one-day shuttle license at BET for their annual event as well.
the dinner,
Yes.
but that's covered under the law. It specifically states because it's a technical school,
Okay.
and that's what they do.
Well, it's up to you how you vote, but I feel strongly that this would be a great event for the town. And Mendon, and I don't know how many other towns around here all do. There's at least 20 towns that do this for the concerts and have been doing it for years. Mendon actually pays the insurance themselves. They don't have a vendor who has the responsibility. So we can be an outliner if that's what we want to be, but I think this for the people in Upton and the concert series, we deserve to have this.
If I may, and again, this is, my view on this hasn't changed since we talked about it for the town hall. And I'm a fan of bringing people what they want, right? I think that if you asked everybody that goes to these concerts and the people that aren't there, they would say, hey, you know what, if I can grab a beer, that would be great. My kids are here playing, it's been a long day at work, I can kick back, I can listen to some music, my kids can play on the beach. The reality is that most families in Upton with children, whether it's on Friday nights or Saturday nights or hanging out with their buddies or they're eating barbecues with their families and their kids, drinking beer is not a surprise. It's not a new thing. It's not something that every kid isn't exposed to in their families, at homes, at family dinners, at family parties. So to think anything other than that, like we're somehow creating some exposure to this great evil, is to me a fallacy. I think that the people that go to these events enjoy the option. I think it's something that will attract more people to the events because Rushford and Sons has a following. I think that if you've got food and or a food truck, you've got Rushford and Sons, you've got a concert, it brings people to the beach. It exposes people to this great service that's in town that they might not even be aware of. They know Rushford and Sons, they go there, they say, what, there's a concert series at the beach? What beach? With all the new people in town. So, it's just beyond me why we wouldn't support these kinds of things, but that's my perspective.
Well, I do agree with that. And I know it's no surprise to anybody about alcohol or anything else. I think the thing was the liability, which you're carrying the insurance.
I pay for the insurance to pour off site and be ashamed to pay for it. I'm spending the money anyway.
I'm not aware of any municipalities, and I could be wrong, but I'm not aware of any municipalities that allow that. I've seen beer gardens in other public space, but I think they're privately owned land. You know, I'm not aware of any.
Brandon does it.
Where do they do that? I'm not aware.
In the Kansas City. I don't know where exactly they do it, but they have a concert series, and I think it's a Tuesday before hours, and they have been doing beer for years there.
Yeah, what's the location? Or where's it being held?
It's on town land. Now,
Is it at that park?
yeah, it's in the park.
It's on a hill there, right?
Yeah. So it's on town land.
The park that's on Millville Road?
Yeah.
Yes.
So, but I know that you know about places too, that you said.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think of town property or city property. I mean, I know that, in fact, our town planner had done some research, and the city of Worcester doesn't allow it in their parks so much, but they do allow it on their common, so they do allow it on public property. But they don't allow it at the Institute Park. It's one of the parks that they have on for. So they kind of pick and choose the locations where they would allow pouring with alcohol in public space.
See, let me just throw out another opinion if I may.
Okay.
If we had some dedicated space, we have open space all over. But we don't have any dedicated space. I criticized the EDC in the past and said, you know, the pigeonhole was just looking at downtown. But if we had a parcel of land somewhere that was a field, it had no other use, just a field. That would be a good idea where you could do a beer garden, and you could do food trucks and a beer garden. That type of idea.
Well, it's still, if it's owned by the town, it's on town property. So, I mean, there's no differences. Town-owned property is town-owned property. And you had a question.
I did. This application just has an event date of 7/28. You put up
No, he's just several.
Yeah.
It's 4, yeah.
There's 4. I think we got 2. I don't.
oh,
think we
each
got
one's
one.
for a different.
I have all of them if you need to see them.
No, that's fine. They're all the same.
Yeah, right down. Yeah.
I made a template to go forward, believe me.
We have one for 7/14, which is tomorrow.
Yes. Yes. And I need to work out something with Derek, but they are willing to audit reimbursement, give the town some money based on what they're doing. We gotta find a way to do that. It doesn't tie us into them in a liquor license, but they're willing to write a check to us.
How would tomorrow work?
Yeah, of course. Well, the thing is too, the way I understand it, and again, we can work this out offline, but we can't give a percentage of deals, because that means you guys need to pay for license. You gotta get paid. But if you want to make, yeah, we can talk about this offline. Yeah.
He had her.
He had to apply within 10 days, so he's covered for tomorrow because he applied within the 10 days if we approve it this evening.
I think the top paragraph says 35 days.
That was put in there for more for an administrative process for us.
Right.
So that we weren't getting an application 48 hours before Selectmans meeting.
Right.
So that we would have time to review it.
Right.
And that's the only reason it was more of an administrative.
Well, I would entertain a motion.
So I would make a motion that we approve one-day liquor licenses for the concert at Kiwanis events starting on July 21st, not for tomorrow night, because I don't know how you would ever pull that off. So July 21st is the first date. Scroll up there. July 28th, August 4th, August 11th.
Not the 14th. Are you?
He's ready to go tomorrow night. We've already got the fencing. We bought it. And we're ready to put it up tomorrow. So we're ready to go tomorrow.
We are too. Chief Bradley, because I noticed there wasn't a detail check or not check.
I think it's the same as the VFW.
Chief Bradley has talked to Ryan.
So he's aware of all.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yes, he is.
I didn't hear anything about a tent.
There's no tent.
There's no tent. Okay. No, we don't have to get a fire or code.
Yes.
Okay, so then I would add 714 to the motion for the one-day liquor license for Rushford and Sons to serve at the Kiwanis Beach Summer concert series.
I am, negative, no on that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Nice. Thank you.
What I do need is a certificate of insurance.
Yeah.
With the-
Yeah, no, I-
insurance.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Thank you.
Before you serve one beer, you
Yeah.
just call your agent.
Yeah, I want to call her.
Well,
Probably
yeah,
answer the call
yeah,
now.
for them.
Are you gonna come down and have a beer?
What night is it?
Wednesdays.
Tomorrow
Don't
night.
you shoot skeet or something on Wednesday night?
Trap shoot tonight.
Trap shoot.
I'm,
You should serve.
Yeah.
not on what, I'm in the lead in the league, so I'm losing up the hot hand.
Oh, my God.
Maybe the town's
Oh,
insurance.
Yep, yep. Yep, you got it.
All right, so we'll talk.
Yes, yep, I'll, what's that? We'll talk right now. Sure, sounds good.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
I really appreciate it, appreciate it.
I will try to confident with these mentions. Good luck to you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Very much.
This way. Mask on.
I don't know this.
Thank you. You have a nice evening.
Yes, I do. Okay, we have, members to appoint on the Open Space Committee and create the mosquito control board. And we have applications.
Did right now. I have one for the side here.
Alyssa and Matt.
Yes. Yeah, P. Jones. Yeah. Christine, so Marcellus, that's on.
Yeah,
The ones for open space were just real.
they are reappointments, right?
Yeah, Steve, if you want to run through this, I'm still trying to recover from pushing the wrong button.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have the names for the mosquito control board, so did you want to talk about that? The other two names I actually don't have. I know it was Helen Yano. What was the other one?
No, that's on Open Space.
Okay, so we're mosquito control.
Right.
Did we want to have any discussion, or do you want me to just motion those four names?
Do you have any questions of the applicants?
I think when we talked, sorry, I'm gonna just think out loud for a minute. I think when we discussed this, we talked to Alyssa Burnett. She addressed the board. Christine talked about the topic as well as Marcellus Dassa. So the only person that we really, I don't think we've had a chance to meet is Gavin P. Jones. So I don't know if Gavin's in attendance.
Let's see.
Okay.
Marcella,
Yes.
did you want to say something?
No, I was just checking to see if Gavin was on. But no, I'd be happy to get this committee formed and ready to go.
Okay.
Good. Well, if that's the case.
Now, Sandy, who are it's a Board of Selectmen member,
Board of Health member.
Board of Health member,
Sustainable option number. And,
and one more. Conservation.
and then, two admin members.
So that's conservation, Board of Health, or sustainable. They,
Three, like,
three at large.
so we would have ours plus three at large. I guess the question is, can we appoint all four of these people as board?
I think we can, I guess it's a matter of, do you want to specify who's fulfilling which seat? I know, Christina.
There's no sitting on here.
Let me.
Christina, I think, was applying on behalf of the Conservation Commission, and Marcel is on behalf of Sustainable Up.
Okay. Yeah. So we have two,
Gavin
Gavin and Alyssa at large.
We can just have them as members at large.
Yeah.
Does that work?
Yeah.
Unless they are associated with either of the other appointments, only because that then gives us more flexibility for different candidates.
Right, I had, based on their applications, so, Chris Scott for conservation, Marcella for sustainable Upton, and Gavin and Melissa just at large. Yes.
Okay.
So we still need a board of health and a, board of selectmen.
I think I sent in a letter. This is Al Holman. I think I sent in a letter, didn't I?
No,
I didn't see one.
I didn't get
No.
That's for the.
Oh, that was affordable housing now.
Oh, that's affordable housing. Yeah, anyway, put my name down. Because there's nobody
Okay,
else
so-
here from the Board of Health.
Sorry, this is Diane Tunin. Ted Briggs has also said that he would be glad to serve. So.
If Ted said he'd do it, that's fine. I'm good with it.
Who?
Ted Briggs, right? Yeah, let Ted do it.
Can he forward an application, Al?
We can have him do that. That shouldn't be a
Okay.
problem. But it says specifically on there, a member of the Board of Health. So I don't think he needs an application because he's a member of the Board of Health. So it's identified it's identified the Board of Health specifically.
So the board's taking a vote on it to have him the member to the.
Sure. Oh, we're going to have a meeting on Thursday, but Dick hasn't said anything. And I'm at the meeting here. I didn't know that Ted had said anything. So Ted's fine with me. And I'm sure Dick doesn't have a problem with it either.
Takes a formal vote,
Which he said he'd do Thursday, right?
which he said he would do Thursday.
We'll do it Thursday.
Thank you, Al.
Maybe we can just take care of
These
four names
four
for now.
names
We can
tonight.
address the other seats. Yeah, we can address the other seats at another meeting in the future when we see who else.
Or you could do the board of selectmen too, if you wanted to, right? You could take a vote now.
We have
No,
really.
did the Board of Selectmen put in a request?
Which is that?
I would second the motion. I would nominate that.
Don't
so
they
much more.
request you?
Al, what's his name? I don't know.
Doesn't the Board of Selectmen have to put in a request too?
Yes, they do.
Oh, well, then
That's what we were
you.
just talking about, Al.
But we have to vote first.
Sandy, did they submit a formal request yet?
they're doing a formal vote at the board, and then they will submit a request on after the formal vote.
Correct.
After we appoint.
So you could do the same thing with the Board of Health.
That's what we said we were doing.
That's what we're doing. We're waiting for a formal vote from the Board of Health. We're doing our formal vote here, and we will both put in an application.
Okay, so there's been a formal written request from a member of the Board of Selectmen to be on the committee.
No.
You need to vote first.
Don't
Turn
you
the
do that?
volume up on your now. You're missing what's going on here.
You got me confused now. The Board of Health, which is an elected committee, was going to, Ted has put his name in. He's the only one.
No, he has not. He has not filled out an application now.
And Mike, I understand that. Did someone from the Board of Selectmen fill out an application?
No, we have to take the vote first to see who will fill out the application.
Okay, so you can't vote on a member. You just have to vote on who's going to fill out the application.
Correct.
Okay.
If you would like, I could make a motion.
I would entertain a motion.
I would like to nominate the following two members to the Mosquito Control Board, Alyssa Burnett and also Gavin P. Jones. I'd like to nominate them for Mosquito Control Board.
Second the motion.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, unanimous action.
I would also like to make another motion. I'd like to nominate Christine Scott as a member of the Conservation Commission, as also a member to the Mosquito Control Board.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Unanimous action.
I would like to make a motion to appoint Marcella Stassa to the Mosquito Control Board. She would be representing Sustainable Upton.
Second the motion.
All those in favor? Aye. Unanimous action.
Okay. I would also make a motion that Brett Simons would be our Board of Selectmen appointee to the Mosquito Control Board.
I would second that. All those in favor?
I almost put it.
And you'll fill out your
I will
application?
fill out my application, yes, absolutely, it's a privilege, and I do appreciate it, thank you.
We'd love that out to you. You could have said nay on that.
It wouldn't help.
You're voting on it.
Exactly.
Okay, next on the agenda is a motion to execute the extension agreement with E.L. Harvey and Son Incorporated by the town of Manchester.
That's basically.
Oh, the open, I'm sorry, yes. Those are reappointments. Al Piano,
Yes.
he would like to be reappointed, wasn't there two?
Yes.
Tom Dodd.
Yes, and Tom.
Can we motion those together?
Yes.
Is that okay? Both 1-year appointments?
Yes.
Okay. I would also make a motion that we reappoint Alan Miano and Tom Dodd, I should say, to the Open Space Committee.
Second motion.
All those in favor, signify. Aye. Unanimous action.
That was 1-year appointments.
Okay, so I make a motion to authorize the town manager to shop elections to execute extension agreement with E.L. Harvey and Sons Incorporated.
Yeah.
You.
Yeah.
So I'll just introduce this. Diane is here, and certainly my home is here from Board of Health. What's before you is just a request to extend the existing contract. We went out to bid 2 years ago. ERI was the only bidder on the solid waste and recycling contract. And so in the original contract, we had an opportunity to do 2 1-year extensions. And so this would be the last 1-year extension. It has its outlines for $379,000 this year. And Diane is here to answer any specific questions regarding this year's contract.
You know what the increase was?
Yeah, I believe last year for FY21, I believe it was $368,000.
368 to 379, so
$11,000.
that's certainly reasonable compared to what we've seen over the last 3 years.
I'm sorry, looking for my documents, but they're in my statement.
Diane's kind of just Diane and I, we talked about this year's contract and comparing it to the cost of recycling, and it's always going up. But just so folks are aware, the tipping cost is $95 a ton. That's
recycling.
The solid waste is like $79. So we're paying almost a little over $20 more a ton just to remove recycling from solid waste stream.
So it's $9,100, $95.
$95.
Wow.
And are they actually recycling?
They are. I actually have the tonnage figures here as well. So last year we recycled 881 tons recyclables. They're saying 40% of every ton they get is either trash or it's glass that they're not able to use. The figures weren't as bad as I originally thought. We were short this year about 6,000. Al, feel free to pipe in if you need to or want to.
Oh, no, that's okay. You're doing fine right now.
So last year we budgeted 445,000 for E.L. Harvey, and that was for trash pickup and recycling. And we ended up spending 451. This year, asked for 465. We're hoping it's gonna be enough, but we just don't know what the market's gonna do for this time. The EP is telling me we shouldn't be paying more than $50 a ton. I had this conversation with the owner of Harvey's, and he was just fit to be tied. He said they have no idea what goes on here. They just don't understand. He's gonna try to work with us. I promise it's gonna be good, but I am in communication with them, and supposedly there's a little bit of improvement in the market, but we have one more year on this contract, and then we're gonna have to discuss this year what we're gonna do.
Well, doesn't Harvey have to go through the recyclables? They literally hand sort some of that stuff. So that's one of the things that's making the cost so high, is because if we just delivered it to them and they used it all as recyclable, that would probably be a lot less money. But right now they have to sort through that. So when they dump the recycling in there, they have people that literally sort out the stuff. So only the recycling goes through. So a lot of that stuff that we send in is not recyclable. So that also adds to the cost. I feel sorry for Harvey's.
Yeah.
I would make a motion that we authorize the town manager to execute the contract with E.L. Harvey and Sons.
I would second the motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous action.
Good work, Diane.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Sure.
Good job, Diane.
Can you go home now, Diane?
No, I cannot. I'd like to, but that's not gonna happen again.
On the agenda again, so we have anything?
Yeah, there's an intermunicipal agreement, IMA.
On the board, so the,
Yeah, for shared services for Board of Health to be utilizing. We can use them as a food inspector, Title V inspector. It's a 3-year grant program. It's a really good program. I know Al's a little bit hesitant, but.
I was, but after reading it and having a discussion, it's really a very good thing, because one of the things that's happening to us is our food inspector is going to be retiring, which will put us, she's been very good and been excellent, but without her, we're going to be hard pressed to find somebody to replace her. And this will give us a mechanism to have a food inspector available to us. So, there's a lot of things that this will benefit us, the town, save us a lot of trouble. So it's a good thing.
Northbridge.
Northbridge will be full of town,
The
but,
host town?
yep. And there should be no fees incurred by the town of Upton whatsoever. There is an out clause at the end of the 3-year period when I'll see if there's any more grant money available, but I've gone over and over the contract, and the Department of Public Health has looked over it with their attorney and made a few word changes. I do have to give you a new page 1 because there was a spelling error that needed to be corrected.
No, I have pretty much students.
Okay.
Because you get everything started.
Okay.
We'll put them together.
Okay.
This is not just a signature page.
The signature page, sure.
We'll collate it.
So if there's any questions, I would be more than happy to answer it. If anybody has any, I know if you had a chance to look over this. This is a draft page. Do you want?
No, I was looking at the online signature page, and it just asks for a Board of Health signature, and then
Right.
it says a select board signature.
Right.
So in this situation, so that's at the bottom signature, and then on the top it has another signature block as well. So, and this is the draft. I just want to make sure
Yeah.
exactly what they were looking for, because they're looking at 2 signature blocks.
Yes. I would assume you could sign for the selectmen, but that's, I'm not a lawyer, so.
Yeah, I mean, I can sign anything with that information.
Really? If I have you write a check, will you sign it for me, Derek?
I will. So I make a motion to authorize the town manager to approve an intermunicipal agreement with the town of Northbridge for public health shared services.
I would second the motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous action.
You skipped over the question part. I did have a quick question, but it wasn't going to impact my vote. But just so I can better understand it, I see the consortium of towns.
Yep.
I understand the services that Al just described. You mentioned there's a grant. So how does that work? If we need services, say for instance, a health inspector, does the grant pick up the cost of those inspections?
Correct.
I see.
Correct. So each town is allotted, depending on the population, allotted so much funding. And once we utilize that, we can't, we have a lot more need in the next town. We can't necessarily do
back fee.
Right. So, yes, and then it's all run by the city of Richmond, the Central Mass Regional, help me out.
Health Workforce?
No.
CMA.
Yes, thank you.
Central Mass.
Yes, they're the mother of it all, and then Northbridge will be the host now. Actually, they're a lot of work on it. We just kind of ride along. They've got a bit of hiring, firing, billing, doing it all, so.
It will save us some money over the 3 years, perhaps. So I think
absolutely.
It may be a very good thing, because on the food inspection, for sure, it'll save us some money.
Right.
We have a deep perks situation too. Our septic inspection. One of the septic inspection guys is getting up there in age, and he may be cutting loose, so that'll give us another exposure there that we'll be able to save some money. So.
Very good.
Right.
Thank you, Diane. Thank you, Al.
Absolutely.
Again, Diane did an excellent job.
So, all I did was print out papers, but, and I think during our meeting, we're going to discuss forming a committee of some kind, or have more deep discussions. So we got a year to work on, well, we don't have a full year to work on a contract it's going to expire July 1st of next year. So we're start thinking about, trash and recycling. Thinking about what we're going to with this. The residents want to continue to pay these prices, or we're going to just do trash. Lots to think about. But
we have not come up with a good solution on this. I mean, we're still high and dry on a way to do it. There's been suggestions that we open up a recycling center right where the senior center or the community center is going to be. But quite honestly, if it's like the one we had at the transfer station, it'll be very, very messy. It won't be a clean undertaking. Heard another suggestion that the town hire.
Maybe the board can help out now.
Pardon?
A little bit. Maybe the board can get involved and we'll work together.
Oh, if you guys got some great ideas, that'd be a good idea. Yeah, absolutely. The dilemma is we haven't come up with anything that's jumped out at us. It's all the downside is much larger than the upside on the recycling, and there's no good way to do it. If we say do it yourself, that poses a problem, because we went to curbside pickup that had a major impact on reducing the amount of roadside trash that we had a problem with. So, you're damned if you do and damned if you don't. So it's really
We'll try and figure something out for next year somehow or other.
That may be the case. We still have it. It's just a tough thing, because it's one of those old stories. You can't take away something you've given somebody, and curbside pickup is something we've given the town, and we take it back. It will pose another problem. So it's not an easy thing to work with.
It's not to be fixed, so it'll probably take us the whole year to figure it out. I think so. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Next, we need a motion to approve the year-end transfers.
Yes. So what's before you tonight is approximately $34,000. I don't have last year's year-end transfer that on me, but talking Kennedy, he said we're actually making headway each and every year. That maybe then the total sum of year-end transfers continues to decline. So we had a staff meeting this morning, and well, next year it's less than $10,000 in year-end transfers. But you can see mostly what we have here. Solid waste in recycling was an $11,000 transfer, so that represents almost 33% of the total transfer request. And then I would say between the reorganization of the finance department and the fact that we didn't, when we originally appropriated funds for the town planner, we only appropriated funds for a part-time position. However, because of the IMA, we've been paying his full salary, and then after we pay his full salary, we go ahead and seek reimbursement through the town boiler center, that money that goes to the general revenue account. So because of that, in which we remedied for FY22, so we don't have that problem in FY22, we had a short deficit there. And then everything else is fairly benign overall. So we would request that the board approve the $34,550 total for year-end transfer. The finance committee approves such last.
Questions? Nobody even just answer. No, same here. I don't have breakdowns in front of me, so if you look at one,
No, I just took it down. I had it up on the screen, to be honest with you.
I make this motion for the total sum.
Yeah.
As written, yeah.
Yeah. So I would make a motion.
I was just gonna say, could you just email that to me?
Sure.
Of course.
Make a motion to approve the year-end transfers as submitted.
I will second the motion.
All those in favor? Aye. Unanimous action. Motion to approve the Tri-Valley Front Runners Road Race. Is there any questions here or comments? Can we have a motion to approve the race?
I don't think I see anything, nothing jumped out at me. I
No.
think this is routine from every year. 50 years in a row.
Yes.
Okay, yep. Good. Bernie, you good?
Sure.
Okay. I would make a motion to approve the Tri-Valley Front Runners Road Race. Looks like it's scheduled for Sunday, September 26th. The set date is 2020. So that's 2021. 10 a.m. to 1 p.m.
Second motion.
All those in favor? Aye. Unanimous action. Motion to execute the Glen Ave, Hartford Avenue sewer easement.
Okay, so this will finalize all our agreements with Pulte. So as you know, there's a sewer pump station located in the corner of Hartford Ave South and Glen Ave. That property is owned by Mr. Poirier. That will continue to maintain this property. However, this sewer easement, which we're asking you to approve this evening, allows the town force of the DPW in particular to access the pump station to provide weekly maintenance.
So right now, right now they have the right, Pulte has the right to actually access the pump and access the pipes and all that. So they're merely turning the rights to do that over to them.
Exactly.
I'm good.
Motion?
Make a motion to execute the Glen Ave, Hartford Ave sewer easement.
I would second the motion.
All in favor? Aye. Unanimous action. Motion to accept the deed and related easements for Azalea Lane. That was the road we accepted the town.
Yeah, so this is interesting. I'll try to cook this very quick. So in the annual town meeting in 2020, town meeting approved the acceptance of Azalea Lane as a public way. The applicant has 120 days to record that deed. They failed to do that, which is why we're doing this again. So here we are. I just received this evening, almost an hour ago, an updated deed for this property. Town council has written this evening that there are a few mortgages that have to be remedied prior to us going ahead and recording this deed. So you certainly could motion to accept the deed, so you don't have to come back and do it again in August. But we aren't going to sign anything until these mortgages. That town council had said that she expects their council to have to weigh in as to how they plan to remedy the mortgages.
You could make a motion that way and then the stipulation that they cleared up before any deed decision.
Do you think that there's any issue where this could be a situation where they're not going to be able to get it done within 120 days? Or they're able to look at this again in another
Did they give them another 120 days?
So they're already on a 60-day mark as of today. So they have 60 days remaining in order to complete this and have this recorded with the registry, which is why I'm a little bit worried that our next meeting may not be until mid-August. And so if we delay the board's vote, they'll only have 30 days from that point forward to finalize any other additional.
I'd ask for a motion to approve the deed with stipulation that the mortgages have to be cleared up.
Okay. Okay, I would make a motion to accept deed and related easements for Azalea Lane pursuant to the issues that Eric has described. Those who run a deed.
Second the motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous action. And then a motion to accept the deed for Williams.
Mr. Taylor's here and others, they can speak in detail if you have any questions regarding the tract of land we're referring to. But this, as you recall, we signed a PNS a few months back for $6,500 with Kane family to acquire this very small tract of land that will provide river access over off of William Street. So this is the deed. We have an expected closing the end of this month in order to acquire the property. The property will be paid for using conservation funds from all of them.
Anybody?
The only question I have is about any plans now or in the future to create access or sort of open up that. I think there's like 8 feet of frontage or what have you to either, sign it or mow access or anything like that.
The short answer is yes. It will become one of the properties managed by the Land Stewardship Committee. And yes, we would intend to make it accessible.
Awesome. Thank you. That's it.
Steve?
Bill, I think we had asked in the past, this property and there's some other properties in this very same area. Is there any way that the board could maybe be given sort of an itinerary or an inventory of actually what we have? All parcels?
Of open space parcels?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I didn't quite hear you. You would like an inventory of the open space parcels?
Yes.
We're happy to do that.
Sure, it doesn't have anything with this particular, the execution of this agenda item, but if you could do that for us in the future?
Yeah, we can do that. Absolutely.
Have a motion?
I make a motion to accept the deed for William Street.
Second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous action. Forest Heights update. Eric?
Okay, so we had a meeting with a number of folks in attendance this evening and some individuals from SBT, the Secretary Valley trustees, to think about the 100 acres that are up off of North Street, which is sometimes known as the Forest Heights property. After that meeting, there was at least agreement that we would take a look at the drawings in the surveys that have already been completed. And Mike Penko's here, he's already provided those to me, where we would go ahead and then try to engage with an engineering firm who could look at the property in its totality and come back with some suggestions as to what we could do with this property as far as potential redevelopment and at the same time preservation of open space. So Mike had shared a thumb drive with me about a week ago. I'm also at the same time having conversations with Gary Hamlin, who's going to do the survey for Westboro Road. So my intention at this point is once we get the Westboro Road survey conducted, I have a simultaneous conversation with them regarding the North Street property to learn if they can help us with trying to identify what we could do with this property. Because there are a lot of, I guess, philosophies out there. Some would say there's really not much you can do at all, not just because of the wetlands, but because of the topography of the property and then potentially like across the ledge. Others would say that there's probably upwards of 20 acres of land that could be developed into a potential residential use, but you have to do some of the processing in order to get there. So we're really going to pull apart all of that and work with an engineering firm to learn more what would be appropriate, and then have a conversation about putting this out to bid and what that would be worth. I think the long and short of it, though, is at least from what Mike suggests, we don't believe we'll have to survey the property because we believe that the surveys that have already been completed would be enough for us to work with, which would be substantial savings. I mean, we're spending $7,000 on a 12-acre parcel. This is a 100-acre parcel.
Okay. Great. Can we have a motion to open the warrant August 1st and close September 10th?
Make a motion to open the warrant August 1st and close it on September 10th.
Second. I'll second the motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous. Yes. Unanimous action.
9 articles, they go, when you get to it, give me out.
And this is part of your timeline that you sent to us that we're going to stick to here, right?
The warrant?
No, the budget time.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's listed. Opening and closing the warrant is listed in that.
That's first.
In that. It's, yeah, we talked with staff today at staff meeting that the warrant will be open real soon. So, you know, you should be preparing your articles year round. You know, you don't have to wait for the board to open up the warrant. So, hopefully folks have, and then we've sent that message out as well to the boards and committees, and I'll send them out a reminder this week that again, it's going to be open on this first.
Discussion on summer schedule.
I thought we
Probably discussed it.
I thought we had an August date,
We
right?
did not have it on this.
So we just did July 20th.
Right, because Steve, you had said that you're going to be away one of those 2 weeks. In the
Yes, it is the week of the 7th. So, yeah.
And I'm not here the 17th.
So we're, yeah, two weeks there that we,
So it's, Steve, you're away on August 10th, it sounds like.
yes.
Brett's away on the 17th.
And today's.
I can do the 3rd, 24th, or 31st.
Yeah, I think that should be fine for either of those. You know, either of those 3 days.
24th or the 31st?
Yep.
I can just.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I can always dial in remotely, the 24th, I will be meeting with some of the college. So.
Nice.
Yeah, I thought you were going to say you might be birthday cake.
One more out of the house.
You're hoping it was far, far away, right?
We're already south, as far as south you can go.
Just based on what you know, you think we would do the 3rd or the 31st or both, or what's
So,
based on sort of what's out there?
yeah, the 3rd probably wouldn't be too bad because that would be a few weeks away from today, right?
Yeah.
Today's the 13th, so that actually would be good timing as far as, you know, any business that pops up from now to then. And then we would be scheduled the 7th and the 21st of September, but Jim did bring up the fact that he was hoping the board would get together the 28th.
Right, to sign something.
So, you know, if I'm laying this out correctly, maybe you do consider potentially holding the 31st, and then your September meetings would maybe be the 14th and 28th. If you're trying,
That would be better.
I know you like to stay on course, Brett. I'm just trying to meet Jim's request of the 28th.
So that throws out the week. So Derek, are you suggesting August 3rd, skipping the 31st, or are you suggesting skipping the 3rd, going from the 31st to September 7th?
What I was suggesting is definitely the 3rd, possibly the 31st, but then the September month, maybe the 14th and 28th.
And then going back to normal for October, or just?
Yeah.
Is planning board, Kelly, remote?
Yeah, I think planning board is planning on continuing to be remote. I don't know if they've made that.
So I'm just saying for meeting rooms.
Yeah, because that's what I was thinking too, but they're only having one meeting in August, so their meeting, I believe.
It would be the 10th thing?
So
So that's fine with me from my perspective in terms of dates. Because I mean, as long as we get back to sort of quote unquote the
regulars,
right, in October, that's totally fine. Because frankly, there's probably 10 people on that whole sequence. And six of them are sitting in this room. So so that's great.
And we can put it on the calendar.
1, 2, exactly.
Kelly, you can put it on the calendar so we'll.
Yeah, I apologize, I had it on the calendar for the 13th since the last meeting, because I thought that's what was agreed upon, so I just quickly, or whatever that date was. But 17th, I had it on the calendar for August 17th, so I just now changed that to the 3rd.
Yes.
So that's already there.
So next meeting is August 3rd, and then we go August 31st, September 14th, September 28th. And then October back to 1st and 31st.
Yeah, I think that's definitely advantageous to meet on the 3rd because we still don't know what's going on with the school committee and the school budget and a possible joint town meeting. So we're going to have some issues with that.
Yeah, and a month and a half, it seems like
There's a lot of business that.
Right.
Yeah.
And if it's a light schedule, if it is a light schedule, we could meet hybrid, somebody.
the superintendent's last day is the 5th, not to totally digress.
I thought it was the 1st.
First.
It is the 1st.
First.
August 1st.
That would be right. Sense. August 1st, yeah. Okay.
Okay.
So we just, need to.
Town managers report.
All right, so let's start with schools. So I think essentially an update from the information I had, but just to kind of talk a little bit about publicly. As you know, the school superintendent, Joe Maruchek, has resigned effective August 1st. There was a decision made by the school committee at that very same meeting that he announced his resignation to hold a joint town meeting on August 7th to rectify the school budget. Right now, the school is working on the 112 budget that's approved by DOR. That being said, there is supposed to be a meeting held tomorrow night between the school committee and the board of selectmen. And just as a heads up, I got a message today from the town administrative meeting. You may be getting an invite from the chairman of the board of selectmen to attend if you choose to tomorrow night. Now, I think tomorrow night, the discussion really is going to focus on potential 2 courses of action. One course of action would be to go forward with the joint town meeting with the current assessment. $1.4 million to the town of Upton, $800,000 to the town of Maine. However, from a meeting that I was able to attend, I think that the school committee and the planning board of selectmen would like to try to find a compromise where they can find some dollars, maybe using federal ESSER dollars, and the school cutting back on a few of the requests for this past year. To the tune of what could amount to $900,000 budget reduction for the school as a whole. That would be a $500,000 net savings from town Upton and potentially $400,000 net savings from town Mendon. And then still require the town of Mendon to go to a special town meeting just in Mendon to approve what would be an increased assessment of $400,000. So as you know, the override has failed on 2 occasions. I don't believe they would be seeking an override of $400,000, but in order to make up that $20,000, they'd have to be looking at staff and some other operational reductions. So those are the 2 potential courses of action. And Kelly just reminded me of the fact that if they do go to a joint town meeting, there'll have to be a joint meeting with the board of selectmen and Mendon and Upton to appoint a moderator. And the moderator, from what I understand, I think Kelly described, would not be someone from the town of Upton or the town of Mendon. but it would be kind of a third-party moderator. I think a list would be provided by the Moderators Association.
Yeah, the school committee has already spoken to the Moderators Association, and the president of the association commented that he's interested in doing it, and he has history with regional school having these type of meetings. So I'm sure that he'd provide different names as well, and then it would be up to the 6 selectmen to appoint someone to be the moderator.
So that's the school update. So more to come tomorrow night. Hopefully tomorrow night we'll be able to make some final decisions. Just as way as an update, and we posted this on social media on the website, but I have to call attention to Chief Bradley and the police department, who has, for the 9th year, has received accreditation. And I'd like to talk about it because when I was in Worcester, we went through an accreditation process, and if you've never been through an accreditation process, you don't truly understand how cumbersome, how grueling it is. It's a very exhaustive process. So the fact that Chief Bradley his department's been re-accredited for the 3rd time really speaks volumes to do it. So I wanted to make sure I brought attention to that, thinking that it's something worth noting. There will be a formal ceremony, I think, in about a month or so, to the accreditation board, where they'll formally recognize the top. Moving on to the TIP project. So assuming the rain stops, this Thursday and Friday and Monday, they will provide the final top coat to the phase 1 of the TIP project, and that will in essence wrap up that segment of the project. There are a few kinks that we're still trying to work out. Dennis, because he's not here, has done a phenomenal job with engaging residents around some of their very specific issues. He doesn't have to do that. He could certainly turn this over to Mass DOT or to a contractor, but he is so entrenched in trying to ensure that they hear from a local voice and not a state voice. He's done a great job in resolving some of those issues. One of the issues you may have noticed is that when you come to the intersection of Westboro Road, the lights are kind of like askew. And so depending on where you are, it's difficult to tell like which lights are for you.
Yep.
And so,
I've had the same experience. I was like, yeah, is that gonna sit?
So we received feedback from a number of residents who have, drawn this to attention. So this Mass DOT is looking at that to see if there's some way they can either change a little bit or maybe put those blinders on so the lights are focused in one specific direction. So more to come on that, but there's going to be a lot of detouring going on over the next few days, and he's already posted some of those notices on the website. Chief Bradley posting them on social media just to let folks know that we're going to have some roads blocked and even maybe reduce someone lane in some sections of the road. Moving on, you probably recall there was an individual that came to the board 2 months, maybe 3 months ago, that talked about a 4-unit 40B subdivision on James Road. Well, you all voted not to support this request. They went ahead and applied for a comprehensive 40B permit to the state for 8 units 40B project. And so on July 22nd at 11 a.m., Paul and I are going to be meeting with state officials over at the site to look at the site and talk to them about some of our hesitation as to why the board didn't feel they could support that request. If you were to look at the application that was submitted to the state, you'd notice 2 things. One, the applicant submitted a map of the town of Oxford, and they apply. If you read the application, in some areas it talks about a 4-unit 40B project, and in other areas it talks about an 8-unit. So they clearly didn't do a very good job of submitting this application. So we're certainly going to bring that to the state's attention that we really don't have a lot of faith in this developer coming into town if they can't even submit the application. So we'll keep you posted on that. If anybody wants to be a part of the site visit, let us know, and we'll work on the logistics behind that.
Well, that's a 2-acre parcel, 2.5 acres.
Yeah, it's a very small parcel. So again, we'll meet with these folks and learn more what the state has to say. On a happy note, Ann Perkins has retired again. So my final day was June 30th, and the treasure collector's office had a little cake gathering for her. We really, if you have a chance, thank her, because as you know, this office went through a major transition, and Ann really held it together, especially on the payroll side, training out, a new assistant treasurer collector on payroll. So I remember talking to Ann the spring of 2020, so over a year ago today, and she said, I just want to retire. Can I retire September 1st, 2020? And I'm like, yeah, we'll get you September 1st, 2020. But then Ken Galacki beat her to the punch and retired. And so he hung in there for a year and a half longer than she really wanted to. So we're able to
Very conscientious.
thank her for everything she did. And then when I try to get her, so I'm trying to get hopefully the rain will let up. And next Thursday, so not this week, the following week, I'm trying to organize an employee appreciation day over at 6 Main Street. Trying to get Country Super to have to cater the event where we invite folks from DPW and Town Hall, and hopefully we can get Ann there as well. Thank you once again. So if you're in town, I'll send you a text message. Stop over. Assuming the rain lets up, we can do something for everyone who really had a difficult time this past year. Working remotely and trying to maintain municipal services in a very trying time. So I want to thank them for everything they did during that year.
What's the date?
Aiming for next Thursday, so I think that's the 23rd.
22nd.
The 22nd. Yeah, 22nd.
Same day as your meeting with the state.
Yes.
Vacation next week, so unfortunately, John.
We'll have a good one.
Well, you missed the cake and appreciation for Ann, so you'll have to wait for her next retirement.
And then, so again, I just wanted to talk a little bit about this one. The Grafton Upton Railroad, they have offered to do a tour of their new facility with the board. They threw out a data set of August 20th at 9 a.m. So not August, July 20th. Brett, I know you're away, but if you want me to, I'll try to work out a time the following week. If you guys want me to, I'm sure they're open to any time. They had thrown out this week for no specific reason. I can talk to Mike to see if he can delay a week. I don't know what everyone's schedule is.
I'm good on that day.
I'm good on that.
Okay.
But if you feel strongly, we can delay it if you'd like.
I mean, I would love to be able to see it, but
We can wait.
if you don't mind.
We don't
I would
mind.
love it. Great.
We're going.
I would definitely love to see it.
Oh, yeah.
We don't have too many opportunities. I know he's very flexible and open to having us walk through, but it would be great to see that with you guys.
So are there any limitations for the week of the 26th? July 26th? So I can reach out to Mike and ask him to give me a date and time on July 26th, the week of the 26th.
For me,
Do you need to be posted?
We'll work that out, but we may need to post it. I mean, I don't see any deliberations. It's more of a tour than anything else.
There is something that I know conservation can't post site visits because you can't have public invited on private property. So because it's the Grafton Upton Railroad, which is considered private property, and it would be considered, I would say, a site visit, so it wouldn't have to be posted.
Okay. Yep, makes sense to me.
I have something on one of those days, I'm not exactly sure, it's just not clicking right now, but until you select the day, I should be open. Should be good.
Okay. If you find that date and time, just let me know and I'll try to work on it.
Okay.
So that's the railroad. So this Friday, so you know, town meeting approved the ramp to be located and constructed at the Golden Steam Building. We've done one walkthrough, both myself, Kelly, Matt, and Hattie came along as well to look at the best configuration for a ramp at the Golden Steam Building. We came up with a different idea than what was originally proposed. This Friday, we have a company called AmRamp that's coming in. We're going to articulate our proposal to them to see if they can make a ramp work with this new idea on this Friday at 9:30. So we'll keep you posted on that. Assuming they can construct a temporary ramp based upon our idea, then we'll move quickly into construction. So part of the idea is if you're at the parking lot, the far window to the right, Matt had the idea that maybe that would be the entrance way. It actually makes a lot of sense because once you get in that way, you have a straight shot to the front desk. So we're going to try to pursue that. That'll take a little bit more construction. They'll cut a hole, install a door, do some electrical work, but that'll save in parking, and that will help us not have to navigate this long winding hall, especially if you're some of the wheelchair users, you have to go down this hall, hook a right. So it just seems more cumbersome from a person with disabilities to access. So that's happening on Friday. And then the last thing I just wanted to talk about, maybe you want this to be an agenda item in August. The American Rescue Plan funds, the information is out as far as the guidance. I would say by looking at the guidance, the best use, my recommendation, and Kenny's recommendation would be to use the money towards, the majority of the money towards water, sewer infrastructure. Maybe we have some broadband use. We do know there's one area of town that doesn't have any access to Spectrum. And Spectrum does not plan on providing access to them because of the costs associated with it. So we do have a couple of pockets in town that we may want to consider extending broadband. That would be considered allowable with Spectrum. But again, mostly everything else is water and sewer infrastructure upgrades. We cannot use this money at this time for roads. You may hear a rumor out there that you can't use it for roads. There is a small clause in the guidance that allows the money to be used for roads as long as it falls under lost revenue. So, for example, if you had, say, a $1 million loss in revenue, 10% of that, which would be $100,000, could be put towards roads. That doesn't impact us because we didn't have any real loss of revenue. So in big communities like maybe Worcester or Chelsea or Somerville or Boston, they have substantial loss revenue that they could then apply a percentage of the loss revenue towards roads. Again, that doesn't affect us. We looked at that on multiple occasions at multiple levels, even as early as this morning. We notified FinCom that it cannot be used for roads. I do believe that the Facet Development Corporation will be submitting a full proposal to the planning board either late July or early August. As you know, they have come before this board and has asked for a cost share with running water sewer up to their development. So this is something that we may want to have a conversation with potential use of funds.
We'd be able to find new community center also at the same time.
Right. Yeah. So again, I don't think we need to make any decisions right away for that. We are working with Representative Miladian. He has asked for some shovel-ready projects. The state has $50 that they're looking to expend, and we've submitted for shovel-ready projects. The removal of AC pipe as one potential idea to get that going, and also the extension of water sewer up to 140. So we're pursuing a lot of different courses of action as far as funds. Two things you should know that it hasn't been formally announced yet, but the police department will get a grant for radios through a state radio grant, and then Meridian had notified me last week that they believe that they've secured approximately $50,000 in the public safety and public health grant state earmark for the town. So last year the earmark was $25,000, which Chief Bradley was able to get 2 ATVs to help patrol the state forest and other recreation areas. This year the earmark has been increased from $25,000 to $50,000. So again, if you see Meridian's sending them more, I think them for a lot of hard work. State House to try to balance to a lot less. Okay, depending on the question, that's all I have for update.
Okay, awesome. Good stuff. Two quick things. I had read about the state project, or I shouldn't say really the mass housing application. And it struck me as unusual because I do remember coming before the board twice as 4-unit proposals. So I actually called the phone number. There's a phone number there and raised some questions regarding that. And I didn't see any, draft or what the actual proposal was to mass housing. But I thought it seemed odd that it was an 8, all of a sudden they came before us with a 4-unit and go before the state as an 8. So I would be kind of interested to see how that plays out. So what was the date? You said you have a...
That is going to be the site visit, 22nd.
Okay. Because it just unlocks, you almost want to say almost like a Pandora's box scenario where you could have, one of our neighbors in a regular residential neighborhood. Next thing you know, we've got 4 houses sitting there.
Exactly.
So I'd be interested, in that process.
Yeah, I'll definitely keep it posted because Paul and I have paid close attention to that.
Okay. Last on the agenda, certificate of announcement pursuant to 301 CR 51.08 to DCR.
Okay.
I mean, I looked at this, it still doesn't tell me anything. All it is a big green blob with some lines drawn.
I think it's part of the calculus. I'm not sure what.
I have no idea.
Can, if you have this, Kelly, I don't know if you can put up on. So, I guess, this is.
This is what I'm saying.
Yeah, this is,
You can't have that.
this is a piece of, this is a couple parcels of land. I don't know, is it not on the?
I didn't put it on the sheet.
I didn't know.
No, it's up around Last Street.
Yes, so it's
In the middle of the woods.
Yep.
Yeah, it abuts the state forest.
Is it surrounded by the state forest?
To me, I zoomed in on it, it looks like it's right on Spring Street.
Yeah, so if I don't need to speak on it, Tom, but I have heard that there's private property in the middle of state forest. And Bill, see,
Yes.
I knew to tell you. Bill will know the answer to this.
Very familiar with this property. It's referred to as the Brown property. It's owned by the Brown family. Has been in the Brown family for probably close to 100 years. DCR has been working with the Brown family on and off since at least 2007 to try to acquire this property because it is really in the middle of the state forest, right by the headquarters there. There is part of it that has frontage on Southborough Road. Actually, a part of it may even abut Ken Picard's former property. In 2007, the Friends of Upton State Forest raised $4,500 for an appraisal to help the state along in their acquisition process. And my understanding is that the conversations heated up somewhat, perhaps, and so this is one of the things DCR needs to do is they need to have this announcement made through the Board of Selectmen that they're interested in acquiring this land. And it is, I think, 3 parcels totaling somewhere between 50 and 70 acres.
Now, are these parcels in some kind of chapter land?
Yes, all of the property is in Chapter 61B.
I know they asked for a waiver, but Mass General Law says it has to be offered back to the town and they have 120 days.
So I can answer that, Bill, because I met with this DCR yesterday. So it is in Chapter 61 land. The DCR may come back to the board at a later date and request the board to waive the 120-day period so that they can go ahead and fast track the acquisition. But they said at this point in time, they're only asking the board to make the formal announcement that DCR wants to acquire this property. So they're not asking for anything but the formal announcement, just before you, and they may come back asking to the town to waive the 120 days.
But right now, there's no valid PNS on
No, right, they're still negotiating right now.
it. Could you check with KP Law to see if we're allowed to waive it? Because that's in Mass General Law, that's under the 61.
I'll definitely check if you want me to, but I know that we waived it in Plymouth on a number of occasions. But I'll double check.
Just to make me happy.
Okay.
So DCR wants to buy this, just so I understand it correctly, DCR wants to buy this on behalf of the state forest. They want to add this to the state forest property.
Yes.
That's correct.
So how would they access that land through there? Through the South Street,
Southborough Road.
Southborough Road, I mean.
For just a second, where that road, where you see that top, the two left triangles, just so you know, there's a road there that cuts in to the right. That's kind of where people used to unload their horses.
Yes.
And they basically trail riders
Right.
work out of there.
Yep.
That land there and the one to the absolute north is like a large swamp.
Yes, all the way down Southborough Road.
Yeah, it's a huge swamp. So that land is ultimately, most of that, if I'm reading the map correctly, is just a large swamp.
So where does the private residence sit?
The land is currently vacant. It's just wooded land.
These are the private residences here. So
Oh, on Southborough Road, yeah.
So if you look at this one, see the two houses there? And then this is to Steve's point, that's in the big swamp.
Yeah.
The two houses, and then there's this tract. So here's the two houses, here's the big swamp, and then this is your horse drop-off area, Steve. The swamp is just south of that. This land is up in here.
Yeah.
Yes. Cool.
Yeah.
That's why I asked earlier, because we have so many parcels that we talk about on a rotating basis, and you say, well, we're talking about this one, and this one, and we're moving all over town. It's nice to see this. Although I'm not in favor of the town acquiring any more open space in the short run, this is something that the state would be buying. And all for that.
And maybe we would get a little reimbursement on it. What do you think?
Selling it.
The state owns 2,150 acres, you know.
I think it's more than that.
No.
What
just
do
the
we
state.
need? Would they need it right now? They just need that announcement in front of our.
Oh, okay. Just the,
It was success of I.
I, Maureen Winnell, Chair of the Board of Selectmen of the Town of Upton, Massachusetts, do hereby certify that on July 13, 2021, it was announced at the public meeting of the Board of Selectmen that the Department of Conservation and Recreation may acquire an interest in parcels of land located in Upton as shown on the attached locus map marked as Exhibit A for conservation and/or recreation purposes.
Thank you.
Okay.
Make a motion to adjourn?
Thanks, Bill.
Hey,
Oh,
you gotta second that? Don't be slow on that.
I was going to throw an interesting fact.
I'm just following your agenda.
I would second the motion to adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, everyone. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night, Kelly.
I'm saying good night to them.
Good night. Thank you.